I just feel really sad. Trying to find a good spot is hard. I'll be honest, I like the idea of walking to work and being able to talk about anything random. It's just, I don't know if, like, see, this is probably an example of how I overthink. I should probably just do it if that's something I enjoy doing. But at the same time, I'm considering, is this something that you want to watch? I mean, is it something that I want to watch? I got a little bit bored of the one that I filmed yesterday, to be honest. I thought it was okay. But the last 3 days, I was like, let me put this filming on pause. Oh shit, I forgot to do my daily plan thing. So how about I do this here? I'll tell you my plan today. What I have been doing is that every morning I would take out my MacBook and I would basically talk about my plan for the day. That was an attempt to improve my verbal planning skills. Usually what I do is that I would go to the office and I would spend 30 minutes trying to make a spreadsheet of my plan.
I want to quickly walk you through how I started scheduling my time from week 17 in April. I actually learned this method from my coworker Sean at the book warehouse. I stuck with it consistently until the end of July, which is when I decided to cancel the project with the bookstore. It worked well for a few months, but I had to stop because of burnout. Still, I think I'll adapt it again in the future. What I really liked about this method is how simple, customizable, and free it is. I set up a folder on Google Drive called 2024 Schedule. Inside that folder, I created a new Google spreadsheet each week, labeling it by week number. Labeling files has been a game changer for me, especially after learning the hard way during my dumplings business. When life gets chaotic, it's crucial to have things named and organized for easy retrieval later on. So in my first week, I created a time column with 15 minutes gaps. Choosing that time interval was tricky. I randomly went with 15 minutes and stuck with it. In hindsight, 20 minutes might have been a better choice, and maybe a 15-minute intervals contributed to my burnout. One thing I struggled with early on was naming tasks clearly. For example, in week 17, I was preparing to make dumplings for a movie screening event, but on my schedule, I just labeled it as working on the spreadsheet. That wasn't specific enough, and I'd often forget what I had originally planned. I soon realized that being a bit more detailed when naming tasks is really helpful for staying on track. Although I've found, especially as someone who's autistic, that naming tasks can be tough sometimes. A lot of the times after a busy day, I have trouble articulating what I've done to people. So forcing myself to name the tasks ahead of time has actually helped me to communicate more clearly with others about what I'm working on. When I first started, I aimed to keep tasks to about an hour each. By week 20, I realized I needed a 15-minute buffer for every hour, plus 15 to 30 minutes at the end of each task to summarize, finish things up, and transition smoothly to the next task. It took me a while to figure that out, and that's when I began color coding the blocks as visual aid. Just for some context, in week 17, I was still working at the book warehouse, so I left my work hours blank and only scheduled my mornings and evenings. I primarily used the spreadsheet to find time to study web development through Odin Project. If you look at my earlier weeks, you'll probably notice how my planned schedule didn't always match up with how I actually spent my time. That was something I learned and improved upon over time. I also discovered that it's important to give myself grace during really busy weeks. For instance, between week 21 and 25, I was making dumplings for 300 people while also catching up on 2 years of taxes. During that time, I wasn't able to update my schedule much. I used to beat myself up over it, but looking back, I realized there's no need to be so hard on myself. It's all about pacing, treat it like a marathon. Being too strict makes it feel like a sprint, and that leads to quick burnout. By week 26, I had moved into my own co-work sharing space and had full control over my day. I learned that I could only handle 2 major tasks per day, maybe 3 if I was already familiar with the third task. For example, if I scheduled myself to learn about taxes, which is a new task, I probably wouldn't have enough willpower left to study web development on top of statistics. So willpower is limited, and I found it's best to use it strategically. In week 28, I started experimenting with an online time tracker to see how long I was spending on different tasks. I began giving myself bigger blocks of time with buffers in between and added more details to describe what each block was for. Instead of recording what I did after the fact, I started updating the schedule in real time, moving tasks around as needed. By week 29, I used the second column to note any differences between what I had planned and what actually happened. This method has continued to evolve. For example, in week 18, I added new columns for important tasks, weekly priorities, and even a long-term vision. But I found that I didn't update those enough, and they weren't as helpful as I thought it would be. My goals were probably too broad, not time-bound, or specific enough. So I eventually dropped those columns. But I might revisit them in the future. If I do, I'd make them more concrete, like setting a goal to learn one data structure and solve 10 algorithm problems in a week. So that's how I've been using spreadsheets to manage my schedule, and I hope this gives you some ideas on how to customize it for yourself. One last thing, I've realized that while this method helps with organization, it's also important for me to improve how I communicate my plans to others. I'm starting to practice verbalizing what I'm working on instead of just relying on visual tools like spreadsheets. That's something I'm exploring as I refine my approach.
Did that for 3-4 months, but then I stopped, and not that it's not working for me. I'm realizing, okay, like, let me try to talk aloud my plan for the day. That's why I started filming on September 5th on talking out my plan every single day. So let's see, what's my plan for today? My plan today, clearly I'm walking to the office. That's the first thing I do every morning, besides my morning routine. I don't know if that's something I would ever film, but if you're interested in watching my morning routine, I'm gonna put it here. I mean, can I add this later here? Okay, that's only if you're interested. Now let's get back to planning. So what's my plan today at work? Okay, the past 3 or 4 days, I have been reading all about executive functions and dyslexia. Not that I haven't read about it before, I have, but this time I'm thinking of making something that's more up to date with the research. Also trying to get into the habit of reading research articles again, because my school's gonna start end of this month. I'm going to share my findings. I'm disappointing myself a little bit, because I thought I would be able to do this in just a few days, or I was actually thinking of one day, and it's taking me more time than I thought it would. Something else that's helpful in moments like this, when I am getting paranoid, feeling like I'm being silly and everybody's watching me and they're gonna think I'm stupid, is to, I guess, share this thought with you, and they'll go away. We'll only get used to this and we'll feel less and less paranoid. So I was saying, I guess that's one part of that I find difficult, is to estimate how long do things take. For example, when it comes to planning and filming a video sharing my findings on executive function, it's taking me way more time than I initially thought it would. So, but I'm going to try to summarize everything that I've found so far, which is going to be hard. I think that's the perfectionist side of me, thinking if I were to do this, I must provide more value than what's already existing. But since I'm doing my own work, I should feel proud and I should feel like it's enough. I'll try to sum up the work that I've done thus far on executive function. If I have the time, I'll probably make a worksheet out of it that concludes my plan for today. Oh, and yeah, I try to finish editing one video every day. So that's, of course, something that I'm starting to do as a daily habit. It's always good to get into habit. And if that rule of thumb ever changes, I'll let you know. Very nice. There's 3 croissants. When there's people here, I wouldn't just eat it so proudly, because I was made to believe by the society that I'm supposed to display a sense of shame when I get free food, but there's nobody here. This is what I drink every morning. I'm pretty alright. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Are you in the back today?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good, thank you. I finished writing the script. It had taken me 4 days to integrate into one coherent narrative. Hopefully soon. When it's done, it's gonna be here. Behind the scene look of